Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and I've got one or two final build videos for the Scourge League before the next league starts in a few days to a week's time. And this time around it is Scourge Arrow Elemental version. It's basically a pretty generic bow build, but I set out to kind of test Ele Scourge Arrow because when Scourge Arrow first came out, it was largely played as elemental, and it was one of the most powerful ways of playing bow characters at the time. A few nerfs happened that made scaling added damage just worse for its effectiveness, and it stopped being a thing. Elemental Scourge Arrow just wasn't really played anymore beyond that point, and it became primarily a poison build. Poison Scourge Arrow right now, still a very good build, could recommend it right now. By all means, you can start with that with the new league, and should be quite successful. Ele Scourge Arrow, however, as I have now discovered, is also pretty damn viable. Really didn't expect it to go as far as it did. I don't know what I was really expecting to happen, because hardly anyone's done any Ele Scourge Arrow, neither have I, since some sort of nerfs a while ago, and it doesn't really feel too different, to be honest. You just have to get a bunch of added damage from various sources, and in this case it's almost entirely my bow. A bunch of fire, lightning, cold across the board, and then scale it as a Deadeye, so I've got a couple extra arrows just for easier initial launch of 3 proj, and also the stacking up of thorn arrows. Focused ballista helps out a lot to really get a huge amount of overlap of thorn proj and arrows, and in the end it is just basically still just a bow build trope where you kind of need some well-rounded gear to do anything particularly good. However, of course, with the buffs next league, it should be a bit easier to get to this same level of gear or this same level of damage. Currently my bow, pretty much everything on this character is self-crafted, and you'll see that by the end of the video, but it's pretty good. It's just got a couple of good Ele rolls, and it's a Solarine bow base, which is a heist bow base, and with the new rolls and the new patch coming up soon, you'll be able to get something like 50% more Ele damage than I currently have on my bow, and it shouldn't be quite as hard to hit the kind of bow that I've hit. And the rest of the gear, a quiver for example, could get even more as well, but it's just basically still going to be a matter of chucking a bit of currency into the build and then seeing how it performs. And earlier on I think it'll perform better, and Scourge Arrow just has like a few main little problems you got to fix for it to feel good, and I imagine a lot of people try it and then go, didn't really like Scourge Arrow, and it's possibly because they haven't fixed those problems. You need to get enough attack speed so that the wind up is pretty damn quick, and you also need the helm enchant so that you're getting more thorn pods spawned per like hit. So it's somewhat important for that to be really nice. And this character, as you can see throughout the past few minutes, basically I've just been chucking him into nothing but double, triple beyond maps and just farming all the way up to like 92, 93, something like that. Pretty much never dying as well. It's a fairly like good playstyle to have like 70% evasion. We got blind on hit, capped spell suppress, and as well as that using Secrets of Suffering for sap, brittle, and scorch, and the sap makes enemies deal less damage, so we're very rarely dying, and the DPS ended up being quite a bit more than I expected for a single target situation. It is Scourge Arrow most of the time, but then once I started experimenting a bit with Storm Rain as well, that went pretty far too, and you'll see that in just a second. This is probably the most juiced map I ran in quite a long time, just to give the old Nemesis Sextant a send-off. Since I had one more use of it on some random zone, I just went all out with a triple beyond and Nemesising, deliriuming, scourging, scarabing, just everything, and it was a pretty big map and didn't get any exalts sadly, but yeah, it's going away, and good stuff for that, because it's just kind of annoying to ever engage with and interact with, and clicking all the loot afterwards is kind of a drag. But in any case, you can see that it's pretty powerful of a build to just kind of run in face tank, and Scourge Arrow seems to work out fine. And I think the Deadeye portion of it for the 2 additional projectiles, so that we're always hitting with 3 projectiles, is actually pretty good, because it just lets you clear packs quicker and not only rely on the Thorn Arrows for most of your damage. You just throw out 3 projectiles, and a lot of the time that clears a pack up. So this is where some of the single target is going to begin. Storm Rain ended up performing quite a bit higher on single target, and that's without the Helm Enchant. So the Helm Enchant can do like another 40% beam frequency. It's something pretty ridiculous. And this is just putting in Storm Rain 1-for-1 in my build, changing nothing, and it can perform pretty well. However, I was still trying to primarily do Scourge Arrow, and it's somewhat reliant on having your totems down. If you can't get your totems down, like in this Breach Lord fight, totems are just going to be dying almost all of the time, especially against Ash. Then DPS suffers a little bit. That said, once Ash goes away, DPS can get kind of better again, and there is the problem of having to like stand still and wind up your attack. But like I said, once you fix some of that attack speed, it gets quite a bit better, and otherwise the playstyle is pretty good too. Just running around and then occasionally stopping and doing a bit of a big cast, and Cap Spell Suppress is pretty good, got Leech, etc, etc. So for all the praises I could sing of the Scourge Arrow, ultimately Storm Rain was just a better single target situation. I really can't get away from that. Like, there's no particular comparison. If the mob isn't going to be moving as well, it's kind of a stationary target, as a Maven will be, a Cirrus will be, plenty of bosses will be. Then once you get your totems down and start overlapping with your own attacks, Storm Rain kind of just takes really the fuck off and does a lot of good single target, like I said, without the Helm Enchant as well. And character, I wasn't really prioritizing Storm Rain, just kind of works. This is like a one size fits all sort of bow setup. You could probably put any bow skill in here and have some sort of success. The problem with Storm Rain is that it's not a very good playstyle for clearing, at least in my setup. I think you need more area. I think you need probably some sort of explosion, or to not have Secrets of Suffering so that you can like freeze things a bit better. So careful with that. If you're going to do Storm Rain in any bow build, you do have to fix a few more problems for its overall playability. Otherwise, you can just chuck it in as a single target for probably lots of different bow setups. This is a feared setup against, my character against the feared. No rolls on it, and it went pretty well. Ended up dying once just because it got a bit too overwhelming when I couldn't kill something quickly, and yeah, totems start dying on the harder, thicker encounters. And as well as that, one of the other things we need to fix is mana with Storm Rain, because getting all your totems down right now, if I just change my setup from Scourge Arrow to Storm Rain, getting all the totems down costs pretty much all of my mana, and then it doesn't save much for actually attacking, and I probably just need a bit more unreserved, or the mana gain on hit thing as well, mastery, that I can get but didn't, or just using life tap. A lot of my support gems aren't particularly good. Like, I think I ended up using crit damage multiplier, which is 150 multi, and it's like 25% damage. Life tap's 19%. That would solve the problem by itself as well. So there's a few other problems you've got to solve if you're going to do something like a Storm Rain. Scourge Arrow is quite a bit easier to do on mana, for totems anyway, because it bases its mana cost off of the channeling mana cost, so you can get the totems down really quickly. But then your own mana does start draining pretty heavily once you start casting, which is why we got the mana flask. Once again, could just do life tap instead and solve that problem. And it's pretty crucial to solve the problem of mana on something like Storm Rain, because you can pre-fire a lot of your beams before a boss is even out, and with life tap I think that would be quite a bit easier and nicer. So I mean, honestly, this character took on the feared and died once and could have gone deathless, I think, and the DPS for Storm Rain is pretty damn impressive, and I wasn't really expecting a bow build that's just pure Ele stacking bow build to really go as far as it did. Even tried this flawless Chayula Breachstone, which I think I only had one character manage to take on, get to the end of it, and it cleared that as well. So far it's a hot contender for build of the league, this just bow thing. And the only thing I really have to do is a couple extra little fights, and also see how far I can go on a simulacrum. So if it goes deep on a simulacrum, then hey, couldn't have asked any more from it. This flawless Chiola stuff is serious business. It's very thick, it's very fast, the timer, and turns out we had quite a few damage rolls on this one. If you can see the map mods, there's like 2 Ele rolls, there's penetration, various other shit too. So it's pretty rough, and somehow I actually got through it. So I'm very surprised with that. This is before the bow buff even, so all things equal, this character probably costs like 15 to 20x to put together manually by myself, so I crafted pretty much everything. If you instead just tried to put this together on the new patch, obviously not at the very start of the league, that would be pretty tough to get the exact same results, but it should still cost substantially less, granted that your bow doesn't need to do pretty much anywhere near as much damage or as much power anymore, since you can get the T2 sword, T2 melee weapon rolls on your bows. So let me just show you what the character entails and leave it there. So there's that character wearing one of the new supporter packs, which I thought looked pretty good for a bow build, the worm something supporter. Last bad bow build is what it's called, level 92 Deadeye. I assumed it'd be kind of a still whatever bad bow build, and then the last of its kind, because all bow builds going on from now onwards are going to be good, correct? Correct. So like I said, basically built around Ele damage stacking. So we've got just a solarine bow, it's a heist base, it starts out with a decent chunk of extra fire, and then I rolled fire and lightning on it. Just essences until we got something good. Got the T1 lightning roll, and then I think it was filled up at the time, and I prefix cannot be changed, veiled it, and got double damage focus. Would have settled for lots of things, but double damage focus is one of the nicer ones. And then yeah, just filled it up with some other crap. And like I said, should be quite a bit easier to get really thick bows. Like this one will be kind of mediocre next league, I think, with the new rolls on bows. They go up to like almost 400 fire damage as a single roll if you got the T1 roll, and you'll have like 1300 Ele DPS bows in the next league at the absolute top end. Pressing focus button feels pretty good though. It is quite a large damage boost, 40% chance almost to do double damage. Otherwise, like I did craft the rest of my gear to be fairly nice, almost all of it, and I was using a Hyries Ire for a bit more cold damage with the bow. You'll notice that it has -2 to socketed gems from the Scourge, which is a pretty hefty downside, but it's also got a whole bunch of extra evasion, so 3700 evasion from a chest slot, but the -2 looks bad. It's honestly not that bad because we're hardly using anything in our setup that matters for gem levels. So just a regular Scourge arrow, don't care about the chaos damage, goes down by % damage or some shit. Just a Ele with attacks, doesn't need to be divergent. Inspiration needs to be level 21. Actually, no, that doesn't matter. Inspiration doesn't matter, just level whatever. Trinity in this case needed to be level 21. And then still, it is kind of losing a bit of that extra Ele damage, or penetration rather. So it's a bit of a shame for that -2, but no big deal. Then crit damage and Mirage Archer. So none of those gem sockets really matter, but that's our current links. And then in the bow over here, we have Scourge Arrow attached to Ballista Totem, Focused Ballista, Ele penetration, since it can't use Trinity, you do need some sort of penetration over here. Then got Ele focus and Ele damage with attacks. For a large portion of the character, I was running faster attacks with quality for both setups, because until you ramp a lot of the rest of your character, it does feel quite good to have good attack speed. I was also running Onslaught as a main link for quite a while too, till I picked up an Onslaught Flask. So that's the basis of the character basically for the damage portion. The rest is kind of like min-maxing and fine-tuning. Most of your damage is coming from these two things, and then as well as that, also anger, which, hold on, let me just dip into my hideout real quick. Anger level 1 precision, I think, and a skitterbots as well. So anger does how much exactly? 117 to 167, pretty decent damage as well, and it also enables the use of a Watch Your Eye for 49 crit multi. Just the one roll on there, but it's pretty big. And technically Wrath is probably better, but it is hard to get really high int on a character like this, and you'd need like 160 int for a good Wrath. So yeah, that's what we're dealing with there. Then made my own quiver, just I think I was essence spamming, maybe. Can't even remember anymore. Chaos spamming, maybe. Got 3 good prefixes, locked prefixes, veiled once again, just trying to get the frenzy on crit thing. In general, probably will see quivers like this, or at least, you know, kind of large quivers fairly commonly, since they have very fat rolls on them these days. And didn't happen to get crit multi, and I needed to fill in a bit of resist on it too. This was a pretty good roll as well. Got a crit multi fractured amulet, and I think I was essencing this one, or chaos spamming again. I don't remember exactly. Once again, got a couple of good prefixes. I then went and locked the prefixes and did another veil. Hit basically nothing, just chaos and fire, and then filled in a life roll. Grabbed a whatever hat with Scourge Arrow max pod. So it is pretty important because it gives you an extra pod at max stages, but it also still is kind of bugged in the way that it first was, and it gives you an extra pod even at like 1 stage. So if you just attack once, boom, 2 pods. 2 pods, 2 pods. So it's pretty important for your extra feeling good of the build. Belt I've been using for a long time, just, you know, pretty whatever, basic type thing. Just grab a Stygian and roll it with some early damage and shit by using whatever you want, essences or fossils, and not too hard to roll. Picked these up, but the attack speed while Focuscraft isn't super important in this, honestly. Just grabbed a pair of gloves. These were 50C on the market, and then I exalted on life. Yep, trying to just get attack speed. Don't have to get the attack speed while focused, but it does help a little bit for your wind up when you're actually focused. Rarely does it feel like it's doing anything. And then Assassin Mark Ring, pretty basic. You probably won't be using that next league, given that they don't have Assassin Mark Rings anymore, and you're probably going to grab Mark on Hit Sniper's Mark, which will be quite a bit bigger anyway, so pretty useful to have another like damage boost of 20 to 30%, I think, in total. And then a bunch of accuracies filled out on my ring, and pretty basic ring otherwise, and a bubonic trail, which I don't think they do that much in the end. It's pretty fucking hard to get good Abyssal Jewels. These are about as good as they can be. Next league, obviously, with some of the Atlas stuff, they might become better, and you can stack them better. So I don't think you need bubonic trails at all in this build. I just did them because I guess I kind of could. And then that's my last jewel there, which even with a fractured T1 perfect added lightning, it was hard to like finish it off and make it good. End up slamming life on it from harvest, so it's about as good as it gets. As far as passive tree is concerned, just got a Secrets of Suffering over here. I only added this in the build in the last few levels, so up until that point I was just freezing, shattering and all that, which feels pretty good, but this takes us from like 60 or 70 crit to 100 crit, and then also a bit more damage for the fire side of things. And we still got shock from skitterbots, so we didn't really lose any damage from the other side of the ailment wheel. Otherwise, build just levels, grabs all the typical bow stuff. Do have one very nice use of Lionized Fall over here, which gives us a whole bunch of attack speed by converting the claw nodes. And then we took the leech over here, and then up here all of the dagger nodes get converted, and we took the culling strike. So yeah, that's basically it. Pretty nice stuff. As far as the bow builds are concerned right now, I think they can be very good. I'm not sure we're getting maximum use out of far shot too often. A lot of the time we are kind of point blank to enemies, but here's what it is. It's about as good as we can get from a Deadeye. The 2 extra proj was not something I thought I'd need or want, but I ran out of things I could really get, and then just being able to fire off 3 projectiles does actually feel pretty good. In general, Scourge Arrow wants at least one extra projectile so that you can start stacking up your Thorn arrows around an enemy like this. If it's no extra arrows, it's just going to go in a straight line, and it's going to be harder to stack that damage together. We then grab, so my first 2 points were Far Shot, then I went Gathering Winds, Endless Munitions, and then Focal Point. I think you can do it as a Raider as well pretty well, maybe even other ascendancies, and as well as that, Scourge Arrow Poison I think should be very thick in the next league if you want to go that route too. And then Storm Rain, if you want to chuck it in, do the exact same build, and have better single target. So I've also got the POB if you want to have a look at it. We'll link that in the comments. DPS numbers mean pretty much nothing on this thing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you guys next time.